welcome back to episode 4 of the Situation Podcast. Today we have a very special guest,
Bill Nye the Saddle Guy.
Bill. Yes, Bill Jesser is joining us today, so we are going to do an interview with him and ask him some questions about his repair, questions about the saddle industry, and just get to know you a little bit. So first, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
I'm Bill Jesser, and I work here at Saddle Up. Been doing saddles for about 40 years, off and on.
Yeah, no, you've been doing it a long time. How long, we know this, but how long have you worked here?
7 years?
Yeah, we're getting up on 10 years, Bill.
Yeah, we're pushing it.
Yeah, and so a lot of people know before you were at Brighton Saddlery. How long did you work for them again?
About 7 years.
Oh, okay, nice.
Went, a welder by trade and burnt my eyes up, so I had to find something else to do. So I have always done a little bit of leather work and was doing repairs, so I went over and talked to Roger and started working for him.
Yeah, and you did shoes before, right? Shoe
I had a
repair.
full shoe repair shop, and that's where I really got to start learning how to build saddles.
Okay.
Leather work, I started out, I had an uncle who did a lot of leather work. When he was in the Navy, to pass the time and kind of picked up some from him. And then my grandmother was a school teacher and taught a leathercraft class, so when we spent our summers with her, to keep us busy, we did some more of it. It just grew from there.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Which do you prefer, shoe repair or saddle repair? Like, is there a huge difference?
Well, saddle repair is a lot more challenging.
Yeah,
Shoe repair is pretty cut and dried.
that makes sense. It's a much smaller object to work on. That's funny.
Does anything you did in shoe repair kind of cross over, correlate?
Well, there's a lot of hand sewing on shoe repair. The machines will bounce back and forth with saddle repair. Your sewn stirrups, the sole stitcher is the best for them because you can get right in next to the wood of the stirrup and make a nice close stitch.
Yeah.
The other stitchers, you end up with a bit of a gap in there, and so the covers become sloppy.
Gotcha. Okay.
I know of some stirrups that could use some work.
Some more stitching. So how long would you say you've been doing the repair stuff for?
Oh boy, probably about 30 years.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay. That's a long time.
A long time, a lot of leather.
Yeah. And now your son's
My
getting
son's
involved.
getting into it and doing a lot of the major repairs. He's gotten to where he can do that point. Most guys who want to become saddle makers, they get with some guy and they have him do repairs first.
Okay. Makes sense.
I switched it around and had him build a couple saddles so he could understand from the ground up some of the parts. And now he just can go to it and put new horn caps in, reline them, new stirrup leathers. But when you're doing it the other way, and they're just learning, an apprentice is learning how to do repairs, you have to stop what you're doing and go help them do it anyway. So
Right. That makes sense.
I kind of switched it around to take a shortcut.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Understand from the ground up. That makes sense. Aside from repair, like what's your horse background? Like I know you rope and everything, but give us some background.
Oh boy,
on
I
that.
started out, one grandfather raised racehorses, so I was around the racetrack
That's right.
and jockeyed for a while, just on the warm-up end of it.
Oh, okay.
I was too young to have my jockey license, and then
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know that about
I didn't know
Bill.
that either.
Just like this.
Weren't you telling me? You're like, wasn't Bill a jockey? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
She's like, ain't no way.
No.
well,
That's cool.
up until I was 16, I was real small.
Yeah.
And then by the time I turned 16, which made me old enough to get my jockey license,
Oh, okay.
I gained too much weight and grew 3 inches. So
So they're like, sorry.
that's,
Sorry,
that's
you
out.
didn't make the cut.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Then my other
Wow.
grandfather, they ranched out around Yuma County and then went down into southern Colorado and had a ranch down there.
Wow.
So the horses have always been kind of where I've been for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and mostly roping, right? Like team roping and
No, not really. I mean, I
Yeah.
started out doing little gymkhanas and 4-H and all of that, and then went into bull riding and saddle bronc riding,
Oh, that's
and
right.
it was rope horses even back then were expensive. I mean,
Yeah.
when you were comparing, a good calf horse was costing you about $3,000.
yeah.
That's a lot of lawns to mow to do that. And so, yeah, I did the rodeo thing on the rough stock, and then went back to roping and did some more calf roping. And team roping was just really getting started in our area,
yeah.
and just kind of been doing that ever since.
Yeah. That's awesome. Now you do team roping Tuesdays.
Yeah,
Team roping
Team roping
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays.
my arena is too small to team rope in. It's set up for calf roping, so Kip found a friend of ours that would let us use his arena to team rope. So every Tuesday morning we load the cattle up and take them out.
That's funny.
It's a caravan of trailers
It's
going.
a caravan.
Bet.
No more bulls though, right?
No,
No
gave
bulls.
that up.
Yeah. What's worse, getting on a bull or getting on a saddle bronc or like a bareback?
Well, bareback is just probably the worst thing you can do to your body.
Yeah, that's true.
Bulls are basically a balance deal, and I never got hurt riding bulls or saddle broncs.
Yeah.
There's I think it's easier to go from bull riding to saddle bronc riding than it is to go back the other way.
Okay. Makes sense. You're brave. No way, man.
It's fun.
Just hold on.
Just hold on for dear
Just
life,
hold
man.
on.
Go
Well,
with one
Ride.
hand.
It all
Yeah,
depends
yes,
on
it's-
you.
You get hurt worse in the chute than you do out in the arena.
Makes sense when they're banging
Bouncing
around in
around
there
and jumping
and-
up and down.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I could see that. Yeah.
I know Bill's talked about, seeing things change.
Yeah.
I know Bill's talked about how getting ready in the chute has changed.
Oh, it's crazy. These guys are spending 10 minutes in there, and the rodeo could have been done by the time they come out. To me, they pull the ropes too tight, and that makes things worse. So then your hand goes to sleep. So as soon as they make a big jump, boom,
You can't hold on.
you
yeah.
can't hold on. So I think there needs to be a little more balance in it.
Yeah.
Ready,
Well,
and
there's supposed to
gotta
be
go.
a 3-minute deal. So
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
I mean, some of the contractors, they would give you your 2 minutes to get down and get on, and if you weren't ready, they opened the gate anyway.
You're like, there you go. Off you go.
It was a time frame. I mean, they had a 2.5 hour spot to get a rodeo over with, and they were going to do
You
it.
got to meet that deadline. Yeah, no, that makes sense. The thing that always trips me up too, watching those rough stock riders nowadays, to get themselves pumped up, like they're all like punching themselves in the
my
face
God,
and they get all
yeah.
crazy, and I'm like, God, should I be doing that before I run barrels?
I love seeing the TikToks of it's most girls like
Yeah.
reenacting
Yeah,
guys
getting
behind the
yourself
chutes.
pumped up. Did you do that? Did you like punch yourself?
And then for
No.
what? They open the gate and then they fall off. Preparing
We
for the
were
fall
trying to
or
get
what?
out on the time limit, so
Yeah.
you just get in there and get on and get out.
Yeah, sit down and go.
Yeah,
None of the
you can't make any money in the chute.
the wise words of Bill. That's a good one. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're calf roping, team roping, riding rough stock.
Yeah.
The money's out in the arena,
Not in the chute.
not in the chute or the box.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
It's a good mindset.
It's a good
So
mindset,
I mean,
yeah.
that led to, with the leather, I started making rodeo shaps, and then started making shotgun shaps and tooling a lot of belts, and still trying to still trying to get into building saddles.
Yeah, yeah.
It was really hard. Most of your old saddle makers, when you'd go in and wanted to talk to them, they always had a sheet and they'd cover up what they were doing so you couldn't see it.
Very secretive.
Very
Yeah.
secretive, and it's a hard go. But I mean, there's actually now you have YouTube, and you
Yeah.
can YouTube on how to do about anything except for the hands-on experience and what they don't say between the lines that you have to figure out.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's kind of the same like with cars. Like you could probably look up a video on how to change your oil, but if something goes wrong or like, they don't touch on that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you're on your own.
pull the drain plug to the transmission instead of the engine.
Yeah, oops.
Uh-oh. You got to pump that in. There's
Yeah.
no spigot for it.
That's funny. No, yeah.
But it was a long road, and I was very fortunate. I've had the opportunity to work with about 7 different saddle makers,
Wow.
and
That's awesome.
the way it kind of got started was I was always taking them apart, trying to make the seat narrower.
Okay.
Because most saddles are built for big people. I'm not a very big person, so I need a narrower type seat.
Yeah.
And so I take them apart and grind on the ground seat and take some of the padding out of the padded seat just to make it more comfortable for me.
Absolutely.
And finally, my father-in-law and a gentleman that he knew talked me into building my own.
Yeah.
And so there was a saddle maker in Longmont by the name of Morris Mayers, and he got me my first tree, helped me get my parts cut out, and then the education started after I got that one done.
Oh, wow.
He goes, now order another tree. So I call up, it was standard at that time, it's Timberline now, and it was, the guy started asking me questions, and I go, I got to get back to you. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And so that kind of started the whole thing of the interest in the way the trees are made. And if a tree isn't good, it doesn't matter who builds on top of it. It's not going to fit a horse. It's not going to be comfortable, and
Yeah.
nobody's going to be happy. And then from the shoe shop, the guy who owned that was a saddle maker, and I learned some from him. And then Salisbury Saddle Company had moved up to Barnesville, and Larry kind of took me under his wing, and we built a lot of saddles.
That's awesome.
I laced I don't know how many pairs of stirrups together before I got to run the sewing machines. And then we'd get together. He'd call me up and go, hope you're free this weekend. We got to have saddles out Tuesday morning. And I go, okay. And we'd be out there all night. And
Dang, just
I'd go out
Working
Friday
away.
night and wouldn't get home till Sunday night. And we'd build a couple saddles over that time.
yeah. That's insane.
But he was like a massive tooler.
Yeah.
It just, it was like you put it in a machine and it came out.
He's like, yeah.
And what most people don't realize is most leather on a saddle is compressed. It isn't stretched.
Oh.
So Larry was a big guy, and his hands were, one was like 2 of mine, and he goes, you compress a swell cover on. I'm like, yeah, right.
He's like the Hulk. He's like, oh,
There, see, you compress it. I'm going, okay.
That's funny.
And then there's been several of them. Ron Vallejos would help me a little bit. Terry Bath, I got some knowledge from. It was just kind of comical. Things just kind of started falling into line once I built a couple saddles. And the hardest thing about building saddles is getting your name out there to where people really want them.
Yeah.
You can't keep up like the factory-made saddles.
Right.
So those guys they'd help me out, and we'd get little hints. And then I thought I could tool leather until a gentleman by the name of Buck Clayton came into the shop, and he had tooled for King's Saddlery in Sheridan.
Oh, okay.
And so he taught me how to, well, you had to learn to draw it. He says, if you can draw it, you can tool it. And so we started down that road, and it really helped the tooling up on what's going on. And
Yeah.
but there's a lot of guys I worked with. I didn't even know these guys were saddle makers at the time, but Jimmy Wise in Fort Collins was a good saddle maker, and I worked with him at the sale barn. I didn't even know he built saddles.
It's a small world.
Yeah, it really is. And,
So small.
yeah, that's kind of how it all got started.
That's
and then,
awesome.
Like everything, people like to eat and pay the bills, so I had to go back into construction from the shoe shop and kind of still toyed around with it. And then after I burnt my eyes up and I couldn't weld anymore, I kind of went back to going, okay, well, I can still repair saddles.
Right.
And it's really grown. It's really been a nice side business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Working here at Saddle Up has really helped it grow and keeps me in the loop of what's going on with some of the saddle makers that are around and
Yeah, yeah, that's
keep
awesome.
going.
Keep on
So
going.
did you ever see yourself in the saddle making business?
No, my niche is in the repair.
In the repair?
Since my name isn't out there like McCall's or Jeff Smith or Scott Thomas, who really got a boost younger when they were into it, that, excuse me, their name is out there. And so I'm kind of a no name as far as saddle making goes, but I really think it helps the repair end of it because I can take a saddle and put it back the proper way, not just slap back on and go here.
There you go.
Absolutely. I can attest to that.
Well, you're for sure well known here in the shop
yeah.
for repairs.
Is Bill here?
I swear, man.
Can I
Yeah.
talk to Bill?
We need like your schedule posted on the door and like a greeter to be like, so Bill's not here, but he'll be here these days. Give him a pamphlet,
Yeah.
you know, because all the time, is Bill? Where's Bill? Bill? Bill?
Yeah.
Bill?
There'll be, like people will just walk in. I'm like, hey, is Bill here? Or they're like, I'm
They
just
don't
here
even
for
let us
Bill.
finish.
like, I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
I'm like, okay. Like I've had one person walk in and I was like, hey, and they're like, I'm here for Bill, and I was like,
Yep.
all right, go find him.
Because I'm
love
hiding in
Bill.
the back room.
Bill's like, he's like, I'm not here.
And he's like, I'm
Sick
not here.
day.
Phone calls too. I'm like, is there anything I can help you with? Is Bill there?
Bill?
Bill? I'd like to speak to Bill. Bill.
It's the same. Everybody wants to know if Dana is here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That is
You
true.
know, even
Yeah.
though we're all very good at what we do in here, like, where's Bill? Where's Dana?
Dana, Bill?
I'm like, there's
Bill.
Bill.
It
It's
just-
Bill's world. We're just living.
We're
in
just
it.
living in it. It's just Bill's world. There was a customer in here. He's a very good customer. I've helped him out numerous times, and it was so funny because I was talking with him. You came around the corner, and if that man could have thrown me in front of a bus to get to you, he saw you and he's like, "Just the man I was looking for." He like pushes me out of the way, and I'm like. And he's like, no offense. I'm like, happens all the time. I just walked. I'm like, it's fine. He's here. I'll be going now.
See you later.
So it's kind of funny.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's
I
fine.
try to stay out of when you're with a customer.
No, it's good. But that just proves you do, like you said, the
a lot that
repair.
you
You're
do.
very known. I think you don't realize how much you're known, especially like from here and the
Yeah.
customers and everything. So,
Well, and
Yeah.
it's very regional. At one time, there was about 5 guys in this area that was doing saddle repair,
oh wow.
and we never really had to compete for work. But
Yeah.
you know, everybody would. How long is it going to take you to do this? And if the other guy was faster, he'd get the work out.
Right.
And it just depends on what
Like
you
a
have backlogged.
competition.
But you're about it, right? I mean, there might be a few in the area.
There's a gentleman out at Yuma that's doing a little bit of repair on the side, and I think Mark Fellin's doing a little bit
Oh, okay.
again.
Gotcha.
Ron Vallejos only wants to work on his saddles that he built.
Right. Yeah.
I
which
mean,
is
that's the way most
understandable.
saddle makers are. They don't want to work on any of the factory-made saddles. They want to just do the custom-made ones.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I could see that because you have your name on it, you know, and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that does make sense. How do you feel in all, like, you know, in the years that you've been doing it, how has it, like, the saddle industry changed? Because it's changed a lot.
Well, almost everything back when I started was a bench-made saddle, which meant one guy would totally cut it out and assemble it. Even they would send it to another group of people that just tooled.
Okay.
Okay, so the toolers would tool it, and then it would come back, and the guy would assemble it. So there was a lot of variation in factory-made saddles as to how the ground seat fit, how the skirts were put on.
Yeah.
Some guys like to see the skirts higher in the gullet. Some like them lower in the gullet. The lower you put them, the wider they look, even though they're the exact same gullet width on a saddle.
Makes sense.
I think the biggest thing that has changed our industry is the saddle fitting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I remember back in the 60s, you'd walk in and see a saddle you liked, you bought it, you took it home.
Yeah.
If you pulled white hairs on a horse from an ill-fitting saddle, it was because you were using it.
Right.
Nobody really thought about it. And I think it's been probably 15 years, maybe a little longer, that saddle fitting has really become a necessity,
Yeah.
more or less. You take some of your older saddle companies that are down in Texas, they were already ahead of what we were getting done. I mean, the private saddle makers.
Yeah.
They were already opening up the gullet hole on a saddle. And so you take a lot of those old reiners and cutters from down in Texas, and most of their ropers would still fit horses today.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
The unfortunate part is we've lost some of those tree makers,
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, but
and they still want to build saddles for horses in the 80s and early 90s, and those horses are old. They're not here anymore.
No, they're not. There's so much crossbreeding and everything going on.
40-year-old horse.
Yeah, I mean, horses just, they look so different. So I assume that, I feel like it's a hard thing though. You would think that the trees have changed drastically, but a lot of them, like you're saying, haven't changed to
They
match that.
haven't at all. And
Yeah.
like Lauren just mentioned, we've crossbred so many of the different types of horses together, and then we'll throw some draft or Morgan in there, and then on down
They're
the,
everywhere.
Yeah,
The
it's all
draft
over.
they're everywhere.
And they're crossing them with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very common now. I mean,
like those, I swear to God, mule drafts.
those mule drafts, you
Oh,
weren't
that's-
here that day, were you?
No.
Those, we had that customer say that they were bringing in 2 mules. So we thought traditional mule, you
mules,
know.
like dollies.
They unloaded those things and we were like, our jaws dropped. And they were so sweet, but they had to be bigger. I
Their
mean,
ears were this big.
their
Yeah.
ears, their heads were the size of our torso. Like
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
huge. And it's like, well,
They were so sweet though.
they
I
were
loved
so
them.
sweet. But yeah, it's very common now to, like when we schedule saddle fits, we've even had to start asking, what is it? What are you bringing? Because you just never know. Yeah.
or the time they scheduled one for a mini. It's like,
That was so cute.
Bill had to get on his knees and like, it was cute.
but you know, some of the companies are really trying to get updated.
Yeah.
If we could just get everybody on board with the tree thing, then it would make our jobs easier.
Absolutely.
But you still have a lot of assembly line type saddles that are in the construction. Most people will get a customized saddle and think they have a custom saddle. Well, if you get a custom saddle, it meant they started with a tree that was made to fit that horse and then all the way through.
I feel like that's a common problem we run into. We get a lot of saddles on consignment that people have had custom made to fit that horse, and when they get it, it ends up not fitting. And that's a huge misconception in the saddle world.
Very big, very
Yeah.
big.
Getting a custom saddle, like a real custom saddle that fits. You have to know that your horse isn't going to change by the time it's done.
Yeah, because they fluctuate so much too. I mean, depending on the season, depending on feed, like whatever, they could look totally different. You know, from the time we had a customer, it was a couple weeks ago, super great family. This horse had been injured and they had a saddle that did sore them, or sore the horse, and then got injured, so he'd been on stall rest. So not only did he have this kind of swelling spot from the saddle that had pinched him, but now he'd lost all of his muscle mass from just being in a stall. And they brought him, and I mean, it was hard. It was hard to find a fit, not because I don't feel it was a saddle issue. It was, you know, just everything all together.
Just a confirmation the horse has changed.
Right, you know, and he asked about a custom, and I said that same thing. I'm like, this horse, you start riding him up and getting him back to what he should look like and what he used to look like, get that swelling down, that custom saddle isn't going to fit the same, you know?
Yeah, well, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get a tree,
Yeah.
and then on an average about 16 to 18 weeks to get a saddle built on it.
Right.
And you're talking, or more, or
Poor Lauren.
you're shipping stuff back and forth.
Yeah, the shipping on top of it.
And are they going to just let the horse sit for that amount of time, or are they going to find something that's close and go ahead and ride him, which totally changes the thing?
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too what a lot of people don't realize is those saddle makers that advertise custom fit, they're just finding the closest tree. It's not a guarantee that it fits.
No,
you know.
they still have their standards.
70%.
Yeah.
One of the things on the trees is a lot of the companies are going to a 3D router system, which really helps in the consistency of the trees
Yeah.
compared to the, what do they call it? It's, I lost the word for it. A duplicating machine where it's just a wheel that runs over a metal pattern
Yeah.
and then cuts it out with a saw blade. Well, if the metal pattern gets shifted a little bit, it changes that whole bar. It changes everything about them.
The consistency isn't
Yeah.
isn't 100%. And we've ran into that here. Like you throw, and you have tried it a lot, saddles that come to us that they are like, no, those have the same tree. You can take two of the same exact saddle, go try them on the same horse, one fits, one doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean, to plug Circle Y, they're actually trying and working really hard at building a better tree.
Absolutely.
And
Yay.
on the other end of that, they're also working at trying to build up their using saddles,
Yeah.
doing a lot better quality on their ropers and their wrench cutters and their all-arounds and their barrel saddles. And they really got known for being a trail riding saddle. And
Right.
now
Now
they're
they've
wanting to go
expanded.
the other way and expand. And I think, I'm not stretching the truth, but I think they're building more of those saddles as a bench-made saddle and not a assembly-like type saddle.
I agree with you. I think they're definitely trying to rein it back into more of the, like handmade instead of just the, assembly line type.
It just some of those companies just have people that signed on to go to work,
Yeah.
and all they're going to do is put a screw here and a nail there, and they're not worried about whether their skirts are even, and they're not worried about whether the seat is put in square. And
Right, the quality control. A big thing is the ground seat, which you've taught us a lot about. And that comes in play with, we get so many people that think, oh, I need a padded seat. Padded seats are just the most comfortable. If there's nothing there, it's going to be so uncomfortable, but it's quite the opposite, right? I mean, it's all on that ground seat.
well, and so many of the companies, just to cut costs now, are putting in what we call a half seat. It doesn't go clear up the cantle board, so they have to make up the difference between the leather and the ground seat with foam.
Oh, right.
So foam breaks down, creates lumps.
It does. I don't know. I stand by hard seats, man.
Me too.
I think a padded seat, once you ride, don't get me wrong, once you ride in a well done hard seat, that's the most comfortable saddle. And I mean, I just had Bill modify a saddle that I had. It had giant padding in the seat, and I could not stand that saddle. I hated it. I couldn't sit in it. And he removed it and put this beautiful hard seat, and that saddle's a game changer. But it's just that thick padding, it separates you from your horse.
Well, it separates you from your horse, and you lose the dish in the cantle board,
Yeah.
which it actually holds your in.
Yeah.
And so you fill it up with padding,
Yeah.
and the dish is gone, so it doesn't form to you.
So you're just like hovering above, not down
Yeah,
on the
like-
horse.
Sitting in it.
Like my saddle with the padded seat. I mean,
It's doable.
it's doable for me. I'm not the pickiest person. I definitely can be, but I'm not the pickiest person. I didn't think I was gonna like it. I mean, I don't hate it, but my old Martin hard seat,
It's perfect.
I would sleep in that thing.
Yeah. What about you? Do you ride? Have you really like experimented like with a hard seat
I don't like
versus
padded.
You don't like padded either?
I feel like I'm too like
There's just-
above or something.
yeah,
I'm
you're,
just
like,
so I'm
hovering.
like sitting on something.
Yeah,
Just-
you're not down on the horse connected with them. You can't
Well,
feel the
and
horse.
it's the
You
same
can't,
with
you know.
everybody using those great big old heavy pads.
Oh yeah,
The more pads you put on, it's just like a bubble on there. Everything can rock and roll a little bit more.
that makes sense.
I don't feel so secure. Is what I
Yeah,
can say.
you're
I
like
don't-
you're above it, not on it. Like that's the best way I can
Yeah.
describe it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're like floating.
might as well be an air ride.
Keep my
Yeah,
mouth
your
shut.
horse is like down there, and you're like, Hi.
Yeah.
I know you're not like connected.
Like, don't mind me.
Yeah, I'm just up here.
Just hovering over you.
I guess one question that I had too, just because I feel like we're still being affected by it, at least I see it, but I wanted your take on it. How did COVID affect the saddle industry? Because that's not something people really realized even
Well-
was, a problem.
When they shut down all of the packing plants, there's no raw leather. So without them slaughtering cattle, we didn't get leather. So if you weren't high on the usage end from the tanneries, they're going to try to supply the big companies first.
Yeah.
So I think it's Martin would get 6 pallets of leather a month, which is 100 sides per pallet,
Dang, that's a lot.
and they got cut down to 400.
Oh.
Plus, they couldn't be in their shops to work.
Right.
So we went from 18 weeks to get a saddle to
Years.
2 years to 28 months to get a saddle in from them.
Yeah.
It affected every aspect of the saddle world, no matter where you wanted to go with it. Fortunately, I have a couple companies that would stuck by me, and I could order 1 or 2 sides at a time just to keep things rolling. I think the quality, because they're trying to get caught up, it's not getting as tanned as well as it
makes
was.
sense. Makes sense.
There's a lot more Brazilian leather coming in,
I've noticed that, yeah.
so you get more stretch in your leather. It's not as firm, and if you take the pieces that you need to have firm leather in are stirrup leathers, fenders, and your seat. Okay. And it depends on where you cut it out of a side. So the hip of an animal has got the most firm piece of leather. So you take your seat out of there, you take your stirrup fenders out of there, and then you cut your stirrup leathers across the back, which is your thickest and heaviest piece. And then the rest of it, it's just like you lay a piece of the side out, and then you got a jigsaw puzzle where you start laying patterns down on it before you start cutting and make sure everything is going to work out the way you want it.
Yeah, that's crazy. There's so much that you don't even realize, but do you feel like people or saddle makers, saddle companies, are they still recovering from COVID?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I really do. One of it is so many of the guys that were working in the factory or the saddle companies went out on their own. So their workforce isn't there that they had before.
They're less staffed.
Now we got a lot of popped up shade tree mechanics trying to build saddles.
Yeah.
So that gets into the market as far as leather and hardware and trees. But when COVID started, we couldn't get the wood to build trees for a while.
Right.
Then after we got that situation, most of our hardware comes out of China, and we weren't able to get hardware.
Right.
And
It was like a domino. Like one thing got solved and then the next.
the next thing did.
Yeah.
And I think everybody is working hard. All of the companies are trying to get their quality up. They're trying to keep their time frame down so people can have saddles.
Right.
I know we've noticed, and we're very fortunate that Dana keeps stocked up on saddles.
Yeah.
Ideally, there would be 18 saddles of every model, so you'd have every seat size, every bar pattern, and gullet width that you needed.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think they're getting better, but there's still, there's particular companies, they're still a couple years out because they just have never fully recovered. And I don't think people, like when you think of the pandemic, you wouldn't even think saddle making would be affected, but they got hit so hard.
It really
A
hit.
few of them went out of business.
Yeah, you couldn't get anything. And
Yeah.
I know we were ordering stock lists at the beginning of it just so we had saddles.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we were, but and then you got some of the guys that are retiring.
Yeah.
So in the last 3 years, McCall has lost 2 of the big partners in it that were saddle makers.
Yeah.
And so you got Cal left, and he's working his heart out trying to get people to come to work for him.
Yeah.
but yeah, he's struggling
Yeah.
trying to get caught up. He still isn't caught up.
Right.
And what, we're 4 years away from it now?
Yeah. It's wild how impactful that was. I mean, wow.
And trucking, and
Yeah.
I mean, everything affected it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I think we're on the up climb. I don't think we'll ever have normal like we had before. There's always going to be a little bit that won't go back to normal as far
Right.
as that goes.
But at least we're getting there slowly.
Slowly,
Yeah.
one saddle at a
Step at a
time.
time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You talked about like, you know, like the ground seats, how they can differ so much, but what's your key differences for a good saddle versus a bad saddle, like the India saddles?
Well, that when they put that half seat in and put a padded seat in it, they don't put a full ground seat in a saddle.
Yeah.
So you don't get the full conforming of what it takes. A good ground seat, you can run your hands on it and it feels just like you're rubbing it across glass, or
It's smooth.
it's smooth.
Yeah.
So many of these you go along and it's just like going over a roller coaster with them. I know when we put them in, we use everything from a spoke shave to a grinder,
Yeah. Just to get it.
smooth, and a grinding disc on a flexible wheel, so it'll roll and get where you want. And as you keep working it, you keep feeling it, and if you find any lumps or bumps, you get in there with a file or a sanding block until that lump is out of there.
Right. No, that makes sense. Well, and you brought up a good thing just now, the India saddles, like the India made saddles. What, like we all know, but give kind of from a saddle making standpoint, why are those so dangerous and should be avoided?
Well, they're a hollow tree, for
Right.
one. They'll put a piece of masonite inside there where they have to run screws. Their bar patterns, if you had a rocking horse, that'd be a good place to put them. One of the problem is they use what we refer to as pleather. It's not really
real.
leather and it's not really plastic. And then they also use a lot of, it's kind of a cardboard or paper as fillers in
Yeah.
to plug their skirts and stuff. And then they put a rivet through it, and the first time you pull on it, I mean, not the first time, but eventually you're just going to pull it apart because there's no leather there to hold the riggings in.
Right. Yeah, I will never forget. I think it's that one that we have. I don't remember if it's that one, but there was like you've cut a couple of them in half
Right.
just for display purposes. And that one, it was when we were in Longmont. You brought it in and showed us, and it literally, the tree was made, like you're saying, it was hollow, and the inside of the tree is a filler. It was like paper mache,
Yeah.
and there was little like 2x4 pieces, and then there was literal baby diapers.
Yeah.
Like they put baby
Just-
diapers in the tree, and it
Whatever.
was just a no-name brand, like out of India, like not trying to, name names or anything, we're not doing that, but it's just the facts. Yeah, it was literal paper mache, these little wood pieces, and straight up baby diapers that they had put inside this hollow tree
Dang.
to build the saddle.
Baby diapers get used in the horse world a lot.
I guess so, yeah, for abscesses
I-
and trees.
my
At least
favorite
they were
thing.
new.
At least they weren't used. Yeah, that would be unfortunate.
But that lady had only ridden that saddle like 3 times.
Wow.
And she went to cinch it up, and the whole rigging pulled loose. Thank heavens she wasn't on it when it happened,
Right.
and wanted me to repair it. And back then I would work on some of the India saddles anymore. I don't even, for a liability reason, want to even touch them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's kind of telltale signs when you get in and start looking at saddles. The biggest thing is if the price is too good to be true on the internet, it's an India-made saddle.
Yeah, when they're doing this real blingy cute saddle with a tack set for like $350, you get what you paid for, the quality, yeah, it's not worth it.
That's, well, as far as customers go, they still think saddles ought to be priced like they were in the 50s when they rode before and then they got out of it because they were raising families or whatever. and they still want to pay that same price for saddles. Well, just isn't there.
No.
The increase in the price of saddles is still goes back to COVID, because you take a side of leather that we were paying $120 for is now over almost $300 for the same, and they're smaller because they're slaughtering smaller cattle to get caught up. So
Right.
instead of taking 2 sides of leather to make a saddle, it's taking 2.5 or 3, depending on what your type of saddle you're building. So yeah, so we're still fighting it on
The
that.
price increases. Yeah. Well, I think it's with everything too. They can't stay down here forever when everything else is, cost of living, fuel, vehicles, horses, like just the whole 9
Everything.
yards. Everything else is raising so naturally.
Wool skin went from $50 a skin up to 150.
Yeah, I know you've told us a lot of your repair supplies, like just the outrageous price increase, but it's just the world.
Yeah.
I think that's something people need to understand too. It's not the small businesses' fault. It's not the repair people's fault. It's the world. It's,
You can't eat the costs. Thread, rivets, nails, glue.
Don't blame the messenger.
Well, yeah, especially when you're the one
Don't blame the
doing
man.
all that. I'm sorry, I give you so much props, because even a small repair that you're like, oh yeah, that's super easy. That's still a lot that you have to put into it, and it's hard on your hands. Like, it might not be bull riding, but it's still hard on your body.
I owe you some donuts.
The what?
I owe you some donuts or a Pepsi.
But you just take, probably on a good handmade saddle, 30% of it is still hand sewn,
Yeah, that's crazy.
needle and thread. There's no machine to it, and so most people come in and they go, well, it'll only take you about 5 minutes. Well, it took me 40 years how to do it in 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah, very
You know,
true. It doesn't happen
and-
overnight.
And so, yeah, you're going to pay for that, what I have learned to do, what not to do.
Yeah, what I've vested my life in. No, I totally understand. It's crazy.
There's no machine that you punch a button and it comes out fixed.
No, it's you. You're the
You're the
machine.
machine.
Yeah.
Let's see, we came out of the shop last night at 9 o'clock.
Wow.
See, it's time consuming as well. It takes up your
Well,
time.
you have the drying time. You put with the way that our glues work now, you glue it and you got to let it set for 2 days so the glue sets up. Otherwise, when you try to sew it, the glue is still soft and it's just a rubber that just won't let it catch the bottom thread.
Yeah.
So you got all that. You glue up a bunch of stuff, and then you spend a day sewing a bunch of stuff. You put a swell cover on, and if you're not going to tool it, it takes a day and a half to dry before you can add another piece, or you're going to scar the swell cover up.
Right. No, it is very time consuming. I would not have the patience. I'd be like, nope, I'm good.
I wish I had the patience.
I wish I did too, because it's very cool, and it's a dying trade.
Well, nobody wants to repair anything. We've become disposable, and they're throwing so much away. But Monday, I started putting a horn cap in all day on a horn cap, just because I could put 2 pieces on. They had to dry before I could put the cap on that wraps.
Yeah.
And then it had to sit overnight before I could oil it and finish it out.
Jeez.
It's like there's no time machine that you put it in and it comes out finished.
No, and it's not like a quick.
Maybe in the future.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe in the
you should
future.
invent that.
Yeah.
I'm not into AI that far.
That's funny.
Apart from doing repairs and being a saddle maker, you're also a saddle fitter. So what do you think is the importance of saddle fitting?
Let's see. A non-saddle fitter would say just add another set of pads,
Right.
and the pads will take up what it doesn't work. But when you see the performance that it'll change on a horse when you get a saddle that actually fits the horse correctly. Calf roping is a good example of it. You see a lot of these guys when they walk in the box, the saddle's sitting in the proper place. They rope a 250, 300-pound calf. Now the saddle's clear up on the horse's neck. That saddle doesn't fit that horse.
Right.
And they've tried to adjust it with pads. when you got a saddle that fits, it's in the same position it was in when you entered the box as when you get done. Team roping, barrel racing. There's about 200 square inches of tree bar, and we got to hit about 180 of them. Some places we like a little lighter contact. Other places it has to fit there right. And most people, when they come out and we have them all feel as we're doing it, but they don't get past the skirts. Oh, it's really tight here. Well, you're not even to the tree yet.
Yeah, you got to feel that tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much talking.
You? Too much talking?
I'm known for not saying much.
Oh, okay.
He's really silent.
He's really
We had
quiet
to pay
over
him
here.
to interview
But
him
yeah,
today.
I mean, and it's helping. We've got some tree makers that are really listening to us.
Absolutely.
And I think saddle fit is pretty essential to it.
It is.
Used to be you'd put a saddle on, you went out and roped a calf. If your saddle stayed where it was supposed to and the horse didn't buck you off, hey, it fits.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed you doing where I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's really awesome. And at our next saddle fit, maybe you guys should feel. But what Bill's been having customers and like even me do is you put your hands up under, at the swell point and at the cantle point, and he or I lead the horse forward a couple steps and then back the horse up a couple
I
steps.
did.
And man, let me tell you, when that saddle doesn't fit, that pinches the crap out of your hand. And you can feel it because that shoulder blade's trying to come back where your hand is in that saddle, man. And we've had customers go, ow! And they pull their hand out and it's like, yeah, but then when you feel a
When it
saddle that
fits.
fits,
Something nice.
it's like, oh my God, it's mind-blowing. So you'll have to feel that. I think that's been a huge mind opener for customers too. When they feel that, they're like, whoa.
Well, sometimes you guys think I'm sleeping, but
He's research and development.
I'm always watching YouTubes from different saddle makers, learning if there's something I can pick up from them that will put us one step ahead of where everybody else is.
Absolutely.
Or some of the crazy things. There's a lady who grabbed a hold of the bottom of the skirts and was taking the saddle and jerking it back and forth. See, this saddle rocks. Well, you
Obviously.
haven't even touched the tree.
Yeah.
Ideally, if we could get a stock supply of trees that we could strap saddle skirts on and then go put it on a horse. But the problem is they have to be blocked to fit that tree. So you're going to get hollow spots or not get the true form of it.
Gotcha.
I think one of the craziest things is, I'll give somebody a little bit of a plug, but Bighorn spends time sanding their trees before they build a saddle on it.
Yeah.
So we use a lot of Bighorn trees, saddles on horses that are hard to fit because
Absolutely.
the tree has been worked on and conformed. Otherwise, I mean, you can look at trees up there and some of them got little squares of fiberglass sticking out and they're rough and you can cut your hands on them. They've got to be smooth.
Yeah. They got to put that extra step into it.
Right.
Absolutely. I guess the last thing before we end this episode, do you want to talk a little bit about the Dennis Lane system? Because that is something that Dan has ordered for our shop, and I think it could be a huge game changer.
The Dennis Lane system is more for tree makers than for the normal saddle fitting person.
Gotcha.
So there are, I can't remember exactly, a whole bunch of little star-shaped cutouts, and they go into 3 positions on a horse's back, and that tells you what kind of a tree you want. So what we need, if you're calling the Dennis Lane system the positive, we need the negative of each one of those cutouts so we can put them in factory saddles to see which one works.
That makes sense.
With it, on these hard-to-fit horses, we can get a tree ordered from a guy I've been talking to down in Texas, and he uses the Dennis Lane system. He uses a 3D router on it. And I feel that what we need to talk them into doing is, while it's in the 3D, which is a 1, 2, 3 format, and your routers are XYZ, so they don't really talk to each other real well.
Gotcha.
But they need to put dowel points in it like you do for a kitchen cabinet when you're building them with the 3D router.
Oh, that makes sense.
That
Okay.
way, number 1, number 11, and 101 trees of that model are all the same, so it would help us as far, oh, that's a certain tree.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's a really good system for the tree makers. It's uniform what it is. Most of your tree makers have bars that they've been making since the 80s and they still swear by them.
Absolutely.
Most tree makers, older tree makers that think that you need like a 6.5-inch gullet. And we've really found that that's not totally wrong, but you have to open up the gullet hole on a tree so the shoulder has some place to go.
Yeah, to go back into.
I mean, we've opened some of them up to 4 3/4 with a 6 3/4 front gullet hole, and that seems to help us fit a variety of horses with the same saddle. It's not
Yeah.
so specific as to which way we're going.
Right. That makes sense. That all makes sense.
I'm ready for the Dennis Lane.
I
to
know,
get
he's
here.
like, did you check
I'm
the post
excited.
office?
Give
Is
it
here?
to me.
Is it here? He's gonna go drive to
I'm
Australia.
gonna start
be-
going to the post
he's-
office and
knocking on the door. Give me my package.
Gonna become
Me.
Lauren with her waiting for her
But-
saddle,
Yes.
tackling the UPS guys.
Rod
I'm
Nichols,
about ready to.
who is a
I
great
know
tree
it's not their
maker
fault.
Yeah.
and kind of started this saddle fitting stuff,
Yeah.
uses it.
Yeah. Rod Nichols is a good.
That's probably been 20 years.
Yeah.
When saddle fitting actually, geez, it's probably been that long, where saddle fitting actually started becoming,
Like the idea of it became. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
English always used a saddle fitting
Yeah.
type deal. With that, I mean, English was easy to fit a saddle for. I don't know how to do it because
I
you
don't
have to
either.
reflock it. It's
They have so many adjustable things too, which the
Yeah.
Western side doesn't. You
yeah,
know,
and
but-
all these guys keep coming up with these ideas of an adjustable gullet. There's one out now where you take a ratchet and you can take the gullet and spread it out or
that
narrow it
is
up.
wild.
I
yeah.
don't-
But all it's doing is changing that front bar.
Right. Nothing else.
Nothing else. You still have to check clear back to the loin. The Orthoflex tree, I'll probably get in trouble over this one, would adjust as the horse moved, which you can't have it moving while you're trying to use it.
Right.
There's a pack saddle comes out of Canada that you can take and adjust the bars where you want them. But it has a locking system on them so they stay where you put them.
Gotcha. So it's not moving around as you're trying to
Yeah.
ride and causing
Right.
pressure points. Okay. That
And
makes
it's
sense.
just like people want these flex trees because they think that the whole gullet is going to change. But whatever the swell angle is cut on is what that saddle's going to fit.
Yeah. Right. It
They
doesn't
just
just
flex
conform to
everywhere
any
else.
horse.
Yeah.
Right. Right. It's a huge misconception.
And then the other one is the treeless saddle. And I
I
got
was gonna
Ask
say
about
something.
that. Yeah.
there's a guy that builds saddles and he's a tree maker, and I was reading through his information and he says the problem with the flex trees and the treeless saddles is they're to give you the bareback feel, like you're riding bareback in a saddle.
Right.
The problem is you're sitting 6 inches behind where you would normally ride a horse bareback, so now you're putting all of the pressure on the smaller ribs,
Yeah.
which we're trying to avoid with the Western saddle, and dispersing that clear across the back.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. There's so many. I feel like there's just so much beyond like what people realize with
The concept and the idea is there, it just doesn't work.
Right. Right.
It's like you wouldn't put solid tires on your car just because there's a lot of stickers in your yard. You won't get a flat, but don't get to be rough.
Yeah. That's funny.
I think, like you said, that Dennis Lane system, when we get it is going to help us a bunch.
Absolutely.
And to get some trees, it's just people are going to have to be patient.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It doesn't
Patience is
happen
key.
overnight. And the thing that I think a lot of people
trying.
don't take the time to realize is a saddle isn't made by a machine. It's handmade, regardless whether it's a line-made saddle or a bench-made saddle.
Right.
So that takes time. Most companies use clickers to cut out their parts, which is a 20-ton cookie cutter for leather.
Yeah.
And so they're stamped out.
Yeah.
And so even though they're using those, it's still time consuming to put them on where they need to be. And so when we get to customizing saddles for people,
Yeah.
they got to understand that saddle makers are people too. They want a vacation, they get sick, their help doesn't show up for work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Heaven forbid, I mean, you always try to stay ahead of it, but you run out of thread. You run out of something, and now you're waiting on it to get there before you can complete a project.
Absolutely. That's a huge point. Yeah.
Or stamps.
Yeah, I mean, stamps.
Just anything.
Back
in
to the
general.
COVID thing, like we had so many of them, they'd have to close because somebody would get COVID. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Like they are just people at the end of the day, even though it's a demand and people want their stuff, you know, it's,
But
yeah.
they need to be patient. I think during COVID, Scott Thomas had to close his shop down 3 times to disinfect the whole thing, which ruined all of the leather in there with the disinfectants.
Right. Well, and McCall had to shut down a few times. Yeah, it was a rough go.
Yeah.
It's a rough go, and they haven't quite recovered yet. I don't know if they ever fully will.
I think that McCall has got enough orders, and people are still wanting McCall saddles.
Yeah.
Martin's salary isn't totally caught up yet.
Right.
Circle Y, I think, finally
They're getting there.
getting slowly
there.
caught up in it.
Yeah.
I know that they punched out a lot of the more inexpensive saddles, and we're waiting on their higher quality that they need.
Right.
But it just kind of depends on the person's budget, what you want to get and what you're willing to spend. But
Yeah.
the good saddles are gonna
They're
they're gonna take a while. About 8 years ago, there's a saddle company in California that's by the name of Riccati.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're
they're
very
sending
nice.
a waiting list on them.
Whoa.
Their base price at that time was $12,500.
They're nice. They're so
I mean,
pretty.
this is elite type of saddles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of fit in there because it takes me 2.5 years to build a saddle, but it isn't that I'm stocked up. It's just
Yeah.
time-wise,
You're a
You're
busy
a
guy.
person.
Yeah, you're a
real
busy guy.
person.
trying to, just keep up with the repairs. And I feel real fortunate that I do have the repair business.
Absolutely.
It's not a get-rich program, but
But it works. Yeah.
it's a labor of love. I mean, you have to love it and be interested in the saddles and the trees. And I think I probably learned just as much from taking good saddles apart as I did from anybody I worked under.
Wow.
Yeah.
I go back to when I was at Brighton, whenever some of those saddle makers would come in, Roger had the foresight to send me to the back room with him, and we could just visit for hours.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, because you get into the Wade's type saddles, and I have met Mark Broger and Steve Meekum, Daryl Hardwood. I can't remember Mr. Fricker's name, but good quality top saddles.
Yeah.
Chaz Weldon, Robert Chavez, they would all come in there into the store, and I'd get to visit with them. Doug Kraus, who is a really good saddle maker, I learned more in an hour talking to him than I did beating on leather.
Yeah.
You
That's
know.
awesome. You're a very knowledgeable guy.
Very wise.
Very wise. I know we razz you a lot, but you truly are. Like, we really appreciate you sitting down with us today. I could listen
thank
to
you.
you for hours. We could just talk. We'll just talk. We'll just sit here today.
Yeah.
And we'll just
My
All
normal
day.
day. I
It's
mean,
your normal day. Yeah,
Nobody
hours.
can come in here.
I thought he said he didn't talk.
Yeah,
But-
that's a quiet guy.
I think that probably is all the questions that we have. I think that was a awesome interview, and I hope viewers really love listening to, again, the side of things that maybe aren't discussed that often, especially from a saddle maker repair point of view. So thank you for being
You bet.
here in
Thank
an
you.
early morning, and thank you,
you for your
ladies.
time.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Bill Nye. And
Bill Nye, the saddle guy.
Bill. That's your theme song.
Yeah.
We'll
gonna
have to,
start blushing.
whenever you come through a door, we'll have it played now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bill Nye the Saddle Guy. And instead of science rules, we'll do saddles rule. We can make it. But
Take some
anyway,
copyright.
well,
Well, now what we can do is if customers want to speak to Bill, they have to sing the song.
Yeah. Ooh, yes.
that's
and,
a good
and
a
even if he's not
challenge.
here, they
They still have to sing the
Yeah.
Bill. If you can sing the Bill Nye song, you
We'll
can
get
you
you
can
for
see
him.
Bill. But otherwise, sorry, he's
No,
busy.
you don't want to hear me sing. The problem is they don't make a song in my key
Oh,
off.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, guys, thank you all for being here. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoy, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.